All right, welcome to today's episode of Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. It's going to be an interview. I have Taylor Jacobson, the founder and CEO of a service called Focusmate. We'll get to his bio in a minute, but Taylor, I just want to start with this first question. Well, number one, thanks for being on, but let's dive into this first question. Why do so many of us struggle to focus, especially in the context of this new world of work where people aren't in the office anymore and people are working from home and everything is different?
Oof, this is actually a huge question, and there's so many reasons that we struggle to focus. But oh, high level, let's say a few things. One, um, our bodies, our nervous system aren't designed for the world that we live in, which is providing constant stressors, basically. Our nervous system is designed for like quick bursts of stressful situations. That's like running from a lion or like hunting some animal or some truly life or death kind of situations. Um, and then to be like calm and safe the rest of the time. Which, I guess in a world where like you're living out in nature, yeah, maybe there's a lot of discomforts obviously that you'd be facing, but your nervous system is, when it is responding, it's to an actual threat. And that's not how the world works today. Today, it's like everything sort of can add stress. So like your job is just this constant hum of stress. And yeah, the access that we sort of give to ourselves through all these different channels, like mostly technology, really. And this is not a critique of technology at all. It's just how the world works, is that we're constantly being bombarded by stressors. And so it's kind of a trope to say this, but it's really, really true, is that the level of stress that we've come to accept as just like being normal, and even what like healthy, mentally healthy people are under, is a really high level of stress. And why this matters is that our nervous system is basically always experiencing at least a low level of fight flight stimulation.
These are the proven direct response marketing, copywriting, and entrepreneurship success strategies you can use today to write your own ticket and create the life you want. I am Roy Furr, and this is Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. Now, here's today's breakthrough.
Fight flight is great if you need to run away from a lion. It's shifting resources, shifting blood flow from your brain and your face and your vocal cords, that's where the blood flow goes when you're feeling safe. It's for connection. It's for problem solving. If you're not feeling safe, now your blood flow is going to your spinal column, to your limbs, to help you either fight or run. And so just imagine, and you don't really have to imagine because this is all of us all the time. Imagine that's what's going on in your body, is that you're experiencing this. I think of it as like agitation that can make us feel like doing something, because yeah, that's what fight flight energy is. It like really wants to do something, but it is not focused energy. So this is that headspace of like, I'm going to go to the kitchen, make a snack, I'm going to fold some laundry, I'm going to like check my bank balance, I'm going to do like 1,000 things that are like a little frenetic but not focused at all. And so that's kind of just like how all of us are functioning all the time, is with that level of agitation, stress, distraction, and therefore difficulty calming down and just doing things that we probably could do a lot more easily if we felt calm and safe.
Yeah, so the language you used was nervous system. And so we could talk about nervous energy being the energy in our nervous system. And we're just trying to discharge that. And that takes us away from being able to focus on things like deep work, important work, the stuff that requires us to just have a calm presence with it. So that's cool. I want to officially introduce you and get into all of this, right? So this is Taylor Jacobson. He's the founder and CEO of a service that I am now an avid user of, like everyday user. It's a virtual co-working community with a mission to help everyone do their best work. And thousands of people in 193 countries worldwide sit side by side via video, like face to face here, to keep each other company, to cheer each other on, and to hold one another accountable. Taylor's been featured in The New Yorker, CNN, The Guardian, NPR, Fast Company, Bloomberg Business Week, and many more. We're going to talk about focus. We're going to talk about focused work. We're going to talk about doing your best work and productivity and all of that. And so, Taylor, let's dive in. Let's go back to the beginning. Like Focusmate is this really interesting concept. You log in, there's a video chat with one person, you do work together for a limited period of time, and then like you go your separate ways. Like, what brought you to start this service? What brought you to start Focusmate?
I'm laughing because the answer is sort of like I had this dark secret fantasy that I wanted to work like this that I was just too ashamed to tell anybody about for a long time, probably. But yeah, taking a few steps back, I started working remotely in 2011, some time ago, and I could not do it. I basically got fired from my job, and that just sent me into a pretty dark place of eventually saying, gosh, I need to figure out why I can't get anything done when I'm on my own. And that really started in earnest for me, this journey of like learning all about behavioral science and productivity and a whole bunch of other things. But fast forward, I was working as an executive coach, and I was working with a client that I had a really vulnerable relationship with, and he was procrastinating, which gave me the opportunity to kind of like ride in on my white horse and be like, hey, I have this idea that I've never told anybody before, but would you want to try it with me? And so I just said to him, hey, let's get on a video call and let's tell each other exactly what we're going to do. And then we'll just keep each other company while we do it. And we'll check in and check on on each other's progress. And then we can, celebrate as we get through that. But yeah, the short answer is I've just struggled massively with this problem. And eventually I just had this magical moment where I felt like I could tell somebody this idea, and it worked.
Yeah. I think so many of us who work from home, like I've worked from home since 2010, and my biggest enemy has been my ability to sit down and just do the work. And so that like transitions, I guess, into my next question, which for me, Focusmate has become my number one hack for maximum productivity. I just log in and I schedule a session using the scheduling tool that you have on the dashboard, and it's off to the races. And even like I prepared these questions during a Focusmate session. I have had 6 Focusmate sessions so far today before we're starting this interview. And so, like, just for context here, I've described a little bit about it, but can you let the people who are listening or watching this on YouTube know how Focusmate works? So, like, walk through a session before, during, after. Like, what is this Focusmate service besides, hey, there's this video chat with somebody that you're working alongside?
Yeah, so let's just break it down in detail. A Focusmate session is either a 25-minute or a 50-minute video call. And that call is with one other person who is your Focusmate partner or your Focusmate for that time. And we match you up with that person automatically. You have some preferences. You can tell us who you want to work with. And we're adding more preferences actually all the time. But it's the two of you. And the first minute or so of that session, you're each going to tell each other what your goal is or what tasks you're working on. Right. So like, if I had a session with Roy might say, okay, I have a podcast in a little while, and I need to write down the questions that I want to ask that person. So I might be doing some research and then making notes on what I want to ask them. And then Roy will ask me, what am I working on? And let's say I'm outlining a blog post, whatever it is. Each of us can really be doing whatever we want to be doing. We're not working together. So a minute has gone by. We've each shared our goals for the session. And now we're actually just going to quietly get started each on our own tasks. And sometimes people will, they'll they'll minimize the video, or they'll have their partner on their phone so they can set it off to the side and just focus on whatever they're doing. So your partner's there, you can see them, they can see you, but it's not front and center like on a Zoom call. It's just off to the side, kind of this angel on your shoulder or something who's there with you. So now you're just working. And let's say it's a 25-minute session. At the 25-minute mark, a little bell will go off, and that'll just prompt you to come back, say hi to your partner again, and just say, hey, Roy, how'd it go? How was that session for you? And Roy will share, oh, like, it was awesome. I read 4 articles about my guests, and I made a bunch of notes. And how'd it go for you, Taylor? And so we'll share the progress that we made, and then we'll go on our merry way. That's it. And so, you asked what happens before the session. It's really simple. You log into your Focusmate dashboard. It looks like a calendar, and you choose any time that you want to get work done. And that's it. We will provide you a link to join the video call. It's really that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. A side note, I work from 2 monitors, right? I have the one that I'm looking straight at here, and I have another one over here. And I ended up finding a little script for Windows called Always on Top. So I can do I think it's Control Spacebar while I'm focused on a window, and it keeps it on top of everything. Because for me, that's one of the things, is like a little reminder, that angel on the shoulder. I move them off to the side window, but it's that angel on the shoulder that I know that person has me on web camera, and it's like focused work, right? Like it works for me. I know some people like to minimize or don't have that same need, but for me, it works. So we know how it works, right? Like we just talked about how it works. You log in, you say, I want a session at this time, 25 or 50 minutes. And then you get a little join link, pops up, videos, and you chat at the beginning, you chat at the end based on what you got done, or what you plan to do, what you got done. And then afterwards, you just kind of go on with your life. So let's talk about why this has become my number 1 productivity hack, right? So why the heck does it work? Why did you set it up the way that you did? And why does it make it so effective?
Yeah, I think it shocks people how effective it is, because it sounds really simple. But yeah, I think it's even much more effective than people really imagine it could be. Why does it work? So high level, it works because we're mammals, we're tribal animals, and we did not evolve to be the smartest or the most rational or the strongest. We evolved to be really effective at teaming up with other people, and to survive by being good members of the tribe. Like, you will not survive as a human being on your own. You absolutely require other people. And so, tens of thousands of years of human evolution happened in this environment. We are hardwired to behave so as to be good tribe members, so that we are included and so that we don't die. So what does that mean? It means that you behave differently when you're around other people, and that your nervous system is optimized to be around other people. There's even something called, so we know the idea of nervous system regulation, which is just how your nervous system is responding to your environment. There's this idea of co-regulation, nervous system co-regulation, which actually even extends into this idea that the human nervous system isn't even meant, it isn't even an individual nervous system. It is a collective nervous system. That's how it works. So just being with another person completely changes your state to get you into a more a state where you feel more safe, more, and therefore more focused. And that's not always true. Sometimes you're around another person and you're getting cues of not safety, and so that the nervous system does that too. But it really runs both ways. And so with Focusmate, we're just tapping into the evolutionary reality that when you're with somebody that you feel safe with, that and there's some aspect of tribe where, like, hey, we're both part of Focusmate, we're sort of both on board the same train in terms of culture and values and behaviors and norms, and it's all these things. It's like, when when you show up to a party where you know everybody and you all like, or somebody has your same favorite song or like whatever it is, you feel that kinship. There's an
Yes.
immediate increase in safety and good feel, oxytocin, all these good feelings. And so we're using that to change your physiology, to change your neurology and put you into this focused state. So that's a huge one. Is like, this is just how the nervous system works. There's a bunch more science beyond that as
Well,
well. Yeah. So we
yeah,
could go kind of on,
I
go
have
ahead.
3 questions that might help us dive a little bit further into some of the science. Like you have a whole page, like the science of why it works on Focusmate that people can read into. But one thing that came up, and this like really resonated with, is funny how small the world is. This really resonated with me in Nir Eyal's book Indistractable. Right, he talks about implementation intentions. And then I was just reading Rethinking Positive Thinking by Gabrielle Ettingen, who her husband actually came up with the term implementation intentions, and it's like built into that system. And implementation intentions it's basically this idea of, I'm going to decide this is what I'm going to do at what time. And then you can have some kind of like if then statement for if you don't succeed at it or whatever. But implementation intentions are one of the biggest secrets to getting things done. It came up in Indistractable, which, by the way, Nir is an investor in Focusmate because he loves the technology too. And I believe he recommended it in that book, but it wasn't until I was on Focusmate that it like resonated. I heard him say it in a podcast interview. It's like, whoa, right? What I think is really cool is implementation intentions. Like, okay, so I guess it's not fair to say it's built into the platform, because the platform is really just like connecting with another person on a video chat, but it's built into the process of Focusmate, how you conduct the calls. So can you explain like how this idea of implementation intentions shows up in a Focusmate call?
Yeah. So let's first just look at it outside of the context of Focusmate. Like,
Okay.
why, having an implementation intentions to buy groceries or something, it's the difference between just like putting it on your to-do list and it can kind of just sit there versus scheduling a time to go do it and be like,
Yeah.
I'm going to get in my car and I'm going to do it on Wednesday morning, whatever.
Yes.
And just that little switch of having that plan, as you talked about, there, it's hugely impactful to actually get us to follow through on that thing. So within the context of Focusmate, it's kind of this hack that's like a universal implementation intention where you might not even know what task you're going to work on yet when you book a Focusmate session, but you because the first thing you do when you show up is you set an intention of what you're going to do. Even like for me, even if I don't know yet what I'm going to do, my first step will always be like, okay, review my master to-do list and make a plan for the day or whatever. So it's like, it's that bridge from like, oh, there's a bunch of shit that I want to do to, okay, now I have to get started. So what is the next step? And so it just literally forces you to stop whatever train of life is happening to you and around you and be intentional, and then set the next intention and share it, write it down, etc. So and then maybe you do have a project that you're really clear on. I'm gonna let's say write a blog post or whatever. So the implementation intention now becomes, I'm going to book and show up for a Focusmate session to work on a blog post. Yeah.
Absolutely. And having it be part of the process there is like, it really forces you to set an implementation intention for that time. And if you don't do it, then again, like going back to the tribe thing, there's this sense of like, I'm showing up and I'm not going to be able to tell this person what it is that I need to do. And so I better figure out in that minute, like, even if you're booking last minute, in that minute between I booked my first session of the day and I need something to do during this time, you're like, okay, what's the task that I need to get done in this first 30-minute session or what, 25-minute session, right? So it's super cool just how it's built into the process, and it forces you to do that like during the course of that?
Yeah, and just building on what you just said, I think a question that a lot of people ask is like, well, is there anything like forcing me to do what I just said I would do? But like you said, because of this tribal nature, nobody needs to force you. It's like this very, you just feel really silly. You just feel crazy if you don't do the thing that you just told this person that that you're going to do, and they're there with you and they're about to ask you if you just did that thing. So there's just like this incredibly powerful psychological effect of just, you just do it. You just do whatever you just said you do.
Yeah, well, that ties perfectly into the next question, which accountability is part of how this whole thing is built, right? So implementation intentions doesn't necessarily bring in another person, right? Accountability brings in another person, and accountability is huge for productivity, and you can get it on all sorts of different levels. So like I have a coach, and the coach holds me accountable on a weekly basis, and there's more regular check-ins, but they're not holding me accountable on a minute by minute basis, right? And so it is a huge part of getting things done. And there's something about the co-working aspect, which it's even better than going to a co-working space where you're working next to somebody but not having this accountability on a daily basis. So I don't know if you have any other, like, if I'm talking about accountability within the Focusmate platform, is there a place to go deeper on that topic, or like how you were inspired to loop this accountability aspect into it?
Well, I mean, what is accountability really? It's just making something visible. It's like, counting whether it happened or not, right? So I guess technically you could do that on your own. You could be like, okay, this is what I intend to do, and in 30 minutes I'm going to ask myself if I did it or not, and I'm going to write like yes or no or something like this. um in practice, we just don't do that. It's like really hard to quote unquote hold ourselves accountable, because it's a lot easier to just move on with your day or whatever. But so this is another thing that's sort of, it's built into Focusmate by virtue of having the dialogue with your partner, where because you have to tell another person, you're also making the observation very clear to yourself: did I do the thing or not do the thing? And
Yeah.
so that is actually what the accountability is. It's the visibility, it's the clarity of whether you followed through on your intention or not. So that's really powerful by itself, but then it's just like massively amplified by the social dynamic. And honestly, like, again, this is just how our brains are wired. You don't really need to care specifically about that person's opinion. It's just the fact that there's another human being there with you, and you might care
Yeah.
about them. You might
I
have, but
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, it's interruption, but one of the things that I love is the strangers aspect. And like I mentioned to you before the interview, that I saw somebody that I knew was available yesterday, and I chose not to book a call with him. As much as I like him, there is something about that stranger where you can be accountable in the moment, but then you can also just move on with your life, right? Like you don't have to care about their opinion, but still somehow there's this thing where they hold you accountable. So I appreciate that about that. But what happens, I guess, if someone is like, this is tied into the accountability thing? There is a huge value in accountability. But what if someone is like shy to get on one of those video calls? Like you mentioned, you were shy to even bring up this concept, right? To anybody for a long time. What if, because I mean, I've become a raving fan. Yesterday was my 100th session. I've only been at it for like 4 weeks or 5 weeks or something. Like it's pretty short. Like, and and yet, as I'm telling other people about it, they're like, "Well, I don't know if I want to get on a video call." So what do you say if someone is shy about that aspect of getting accountability?
Yeah, well, firstly, that's a totally normal response, because for all the reasons we've been talking about, that we are highly attuned to our social environment. And so any potential threat, even if we can rationalize why it's not dangerous, we're not rational, right?
Yeah.
We're tribal. So it's a normal response to have, number one. And I guess number two is, universally, the experience that people have, even in their first few moments of a Focusmate session, is it's like, oh, whatever fears I had are like completely dispelled, and it flips completely in the other direction, right? And again,
Yeah.
this is that it's sort of plays on the idea of like in-group versus out-group bias, where like, why even though all of us are human, do we get like so crazy? I'm from Boston, like, why do we hate Yankees fans so much, right? This is how our brains work. Is it's like, are you in my tribe or are you not in my tribe? And it's like, if you're in
Yeah.
my tribe, great, like we can like spoon at night and like look out for bears together. And if you're not in my tribe, like you're dead. So
Yeah.
this is just like, this is our instincts kicking in. But what people find is Focusmate is, and I'd love to hear your experience of this actually, because it's such an act of vulnerability to be like, yeah, I am better off when I get support, and I'm showing up for it, and I'm being seen in my vulnerability. There's this sort of complicity in vulnerability, accepting our humanity, and just saying, you know what, I'd rather be who I really want to be than let my pride and fear stop me. And so that there's this subtext to the Focusmate community culture, where when you show up, it's very warm, it's very supportive, it's very encouraging. Not every single time, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a really strong culture of self-acceptance and other acceptance that I think people just get swept up in as soon as they give it a shot.
Yeah. Um, oh, like that's absolutely been my experience. And I think that speaking back to that shy question, number one, skipping forward a little bit to the signing up for Focusmate, that's probably one of the reasons that you offer 3 free sessions a week, because if somebody is a little bit uncomfortable, it gives them an opportunity to try it, to habituate to it, to realize that all of their greatest fears about the lions that are going to jump through their computer and the social shaming and rejection that's going to happen if they engage with the stranger, that those fears are pretty much unfounded. Also, Focusmate has some pretty good community moderation features built in, that protect you from maybe bad actors on the platform. I do want to come back to one other like science related question, but we are really transitioning into this community bit, right? And so, yes, I absolutely feel like everybody is wishing each other luck at the beginning of the sessions. That's one of the things that's not in the here's how a Focusmate session is structured. But I figured out everybody pops on like before you hit mute, because most people hit mute for the sessions, because we all like, I have a loud keyboard and I listen to music and stuff. Before you hit mute, everybody's like, good luck. And then at the end, it's like, oh, it's okay if you didn't get everything done, but it's great that you spent the time productively, and you made a bunch of progress, and like there's all of this acceptance. And so it is turning into more than like this video call platform. There's this raving fan base and community. There's a Facebook group that's everybody supporting each other. So in the context of that, I guess, can you speak to how you've built Focusmate, not just as some software as a service, like series of ones and zeros, right? That's inhuman, and you've actually built this human community around this tool. And then, like, how does that support you as a business owner, CEO, founder, in growing your business and helping your customers succeed? So
Mm.
let's talk about community.
Yeah, no, that's super powerful. And I love the examples that you called out in terms of like the nitty gritty of the experience and what it feels like, because there's more brain chemistry in there. Like every time you have an interaction like that, more oxytocin, more dopamine, and like, yeah, those are going to help you be more productive and like keep the momentum going and even start to shift your identity. Like we hear this a lot of like people who start consistently using Focusmate, their identity will shift into being somebody who feels more confident in their own capacities. And it's just like all these sort of self-reinforcing physiological and neurochemical effects. But yeah, so the underpinning of the complement to the ones and zeros that you're alluding to is our culture. And it's that culture of vulnerability, support, acceptance, encouragement, celebration. Um, and yeah, it's it's kind of our secret sauce, actually. It's kind of the thing that um, you know makes this something that, yeah, you do want to come back to have those like really positive, good feelings about yourself and other people. Um, so
You,
um,
you know, at the
it's
beginning and end of almost every session, I'm smiling with somebody, which is a pretty cool thing that I don't even think that in the context of my day-to-day work when I was just working from home, like the number of smiles is probably, in the single digits in a day. And there's probably some days where I was sitting here staring at my computer that there were zero smiles. And in the context of Focusmate, like I'm smiling with strangers, I'm having a positive conversation with strangers. I mean, 6 times today already, not counting this conversation with you. And there is, when you're doing that, then there is the sense of, yeah, we are in the tribe together, right? Like we're in the tribe together. Um, and okay, I keep pushing down this last question that I want to ask specifically about the structure of the sessions and how they work, because all of this talking about like tribes and community and all of that um, brings me to something that we wanted to talk about. So you, Taylor Jacobson, you aren't just Focusmate. We're spending most of this time talking about Focusmate because honestly, anybody that is listening to this that is not trying Focusmate, like you need to try Focusmate. But Taylor isn't just Focusmate, even though you're founder and CEO. So when I asked what else you'd be excited to talk about and share, you told me you were involved in a men's peer group and you've been prioritizing building what you call like tribal levels of support and intimacy. And I'm just curious, like how much is this, like are these things feeding each other? What are you getting out of that? Like, what are, yeah, I'd love to know more because a men's group is something that I have definitely contemplated in recent years, but I haven't made the leap into that. So can you share more?
yeah, I mean, these two things, Focusmate and my men's support group, they're really offshoots of the same, I guess, instinct that I've had for much of my life, which is just this desire to like approach life like a team. To like have a team that's with you, like in the depths of your experience. And I think at first, when I started contemplating that, I didn't realize I wasn't so steeped in an understanding of how we're actually designed to operate this way. Like, again, coming back to tribe. But now that I do, it's like, it's really obvious that actually, I think by and large, we're all going through life i- in a way that we're just way more isolated than we're meant to be. And it's,
Yeah.
so much of our societal structuring and the norms that we've just come to accept um, go run counter to this, that we maybe just kind of ignore these instincts and the desire for the level of connection that's actually healthy for us. But increasingly, I am not ignoring that. I'm really leaning into it, and yeah, I've let go of whatever stories I have that it's like silly to want to just, yeah, have this level of community. So, um, with the men's group, what am I talking about? I'm in a group that's called the Round Table, and it's it's basically daily contact with other men in a very safe, confidential, immersive container environment. And so we're talking about and confronting the most challenging stuff that we're experiencing in our businesses, in our relationships, in our health. Um, Stuff that, um, gosh, I'll give an example that feels really poignant to me. It's like, um, men talking about sexual insecurities. This
Yeah.
is something that people don't talk about, period.
No, like culture is you're not allowed to, like,
You're not allowed to.
yeah.
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 And, and you can talk about there's a lot of businesses out there that are selling you on being a sexual maestro or whatever. But this isn't something that you can go grab a coffee with a friend, another guy, and say, oh yeah, I'm really this is what I'm struggling with in the bedroom, and this is how it's making me feel, and this sort of thing. And I offer that as an example of something that I've learned to talk about and to hear other men talk about in a way that isn't triggering for me at all. It's like, oh yeah, this is actually what's going on in our brains. These are the thoughts that
Yeah.
we're actually having, and we're just so used to suppressing them. So
It's normalizing the human experience with other people who are like you. And of course, like, this isn't because, at least I imagine, at least the men's groups that I know, it's not because it's like an anti-women's group or a good old boys club or something like that. It's just recognizing that, experience of men is different than experience of women. And it, like, even in today's world, as we're trying to be uh, inclusive and focus on equality for everybody and all of that, there's still this push and pull of, on one level, one tribe that Taylor is a part of and that Roy is a part of is the tribe of men, right? And on another level, it's the Focusmate community. Another tribe is a Focusmate community, another tribe is entrepreneurs, and another tribe is copywriters. And it's just identifying there's this tribe of shared experience and connecting with people based on that and saying what's common in our experience, what are the common issues that we run into. That's awesome.
Yeah. And one of the things I really just want to highlight is what happens to your relationship with yourself when you create spaces where you can talk about those things that you think are shameful. You have some relationship to those things that they're shameful and you don't want to talk about them. And because it's really no holds barred, because we're all kind of leaping off together and saying, yeah, we're gonna talk about whatever that thing is that's really it's just in a dark corner of my identity that I never want to look at, is you actually learn how to be yourself. And what that means is, if you're imagining your true self as a house that has some really well lit areas that you're hey, come into the living room, everything's really cleaned and vacuumed and nicely decorated and it looks beautiful, and you're every time you have guests, you just usher them into this part of your house. These are the parts of ourselves that we're yeah, we're comfortable showing that to the world. But then there's the dark, dusty corner of your basement or something that's just fucking terrifying, and you never want to go down there, and you never want to reveal that part of you. The problem is, of course, that part of you might be for me, I'm really discovering that song and music and dance and this sort of really this wild creative expression is part of me. But I relegated that to a dark corner because I have some shame about it from some childhood experience, right? That I started to judge
Yeah.
that thing as bad and wrong, or something that's going to result in me getting shamed by others in my environment, right? And so being in, and we're just talking about a men's group because that's the context that I have here, but it could really be any sort of safe space to address the things that we have shame about, that we have childhood wounds about, and to have other people respond to those in a welcoming, warm, supportive, accepting manner. You start to be oh, it's okay to be myself. And then you start walking through life just being more truthful, because you're kind of building those inner resources to say, oh, it's okay to show whatever this thing is. And yeah, some people won't like that. That's okay too. But I really want to shine some light in that dusty corner of my basement, because there's some dope stuff down there,
Yeah, that's really awesome. It reminded me, like, I'm resonating on so many different levels, but it reminded me of a Focusmate experience. That actually last week I connected with this guy, and just, this guy named Dylan, right? It turns out that he's the founder of a group called Uzazu, and he is like, there's this whole embodiment movement, and there are people in the men's movement that are focused on this like bodily experience, and you were talking about dancing and movement. He's like the guy that trained all the big popular coaches today. And I just had a Focusmate session with him last week, and we talked, and he was just coming off a webinar, and was talking about having to do the replay page. And I'm like, that sounds like a familiar Thursday afternoon thing for me, because on Thursday afternoons, a lot of times I just did a webinar and I'm working on the replay page. And so we chatted about embodiment. We chatted about marketing tactics. We like just a little bit right at the end. But it's kind of cool, and it like reveals what an interesting community you're tapping into. Another thing this made me think of is I've heard it called like the new vitamin C of vitamin connect. In every way, like the men's group is a great way to connect. The Focusmate, like working with people even just for 25 minutes together, is a great way to connect, and it feeds us. It feeds us in such powerful ways. So I don't want to let the rest of the interview go by without addressing at least this one important question. A lot of people will recognize the 25-minute and 50-minute chunks as Pomodoro intervals. So like, let's loop back to the very tactical aspects of this, right? Can you speak to that specific decision? Like, because obviously this was built in from early on, that specific decision to schedule time in 25 and 50-minute intervals versus some other chunk, like 2 hours working together or something like that.
Yeah. Well, the first iteration of Focusmate, we actually did 75 minutes, because like once you get in the zone, you kind of want to stay. But what we started to quickly find was like, it's much more helpful to just get started. It's helpful to have a lower barrier to just getting started. And then also just we're so conditioned at this point to think of our time in alignment to the clock and to the calendar. It's like so instinctual that you don't even realize it's part of, it's so deeply ingrained in our psychology. So yeah, 50 minutes is just like, it's really easy to line up against the rest of your schedule, but then to have a 10 minute break before whatever else you're doing. And then 25 minutes is similar. It's just even easier to get some momentum going. And it's funny, I guess tracking my own evolution and my own understanding of Focusmate, 75 minutes sort of reflects this still sort of shame and fear-based like ambition. It's like, I want to do more,
Yeah.
And so moving to 50 minutes was like, okay, this will make things more convenient for our users. But then what really surprised me is once we moved to 25 minutes, how much I'm inclined to just do 25-minute sessions. So there's definitely like a kind of progressive self-acceptance that happens of just being like, yeah, it's actually healthier for me to like have a really, really low thing that I'm shooting for, and then just like rack up the wins, like rack up really tiny wins, rack up momentum. So
it helps me figure out like, what can I actually, that's been one of my biggest challenges before Focusmate, is I come up with the best implementation intentions for this thing I'm going to get done in 2 hours. And it's either a 20-minute task or it's like a 5-hour task. And I can't really tell the difference until I'm in there. But by doing it consistently for Focusmate, like for these sessions, I am getting better at this. And so for me, that's a pretty cool benefit. And I've noticed the same trend for myself. I do a lot of 25-minute ones. Now, we are reaching the top of the hour as far as recording goes. And I actually have another Focusmate session scheduled at the top of the hour. So I do want to wrap up. So you've made it super easy for folks to try Focusmate. And like I could let you do the pitch, but I really just want to I want to lay into people if you don't mind and try and get people to sign up to at least try Focusmate. So can I explain like what the process is, right? Can I do that?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so I forget exactly how I stumbled on this, but Chris Wright, who I interviewed a while back, I know that he'd been on it for a while. He's a great copywriter and a coaching client of mine. And he's like, Focusmate, it's a secret to productivity. And so I decided, okay, I'll go to focusmate.com. And I know it was on a Thursday and it was early in the day. And I went to the website, focusmate.com, and it's like, oh, you can do 3 free sessions a week. Or you can sign up, and it's $5 a month. I mean, hello. But still, I was like, I'm not going to pay $5 if I log on and it sucks or whatever, right? So I logged on and I did 3 sessions, and it was like by noon on Thursday, I was like, all right, here's my $5 a month, because it was one of the most productive mornings that I had in a long time. And I know that for me, a lot of the things, there's this Kubler-Ross change curve of like, at first we're excited. And so things can be like all great. And then we realize the cold, hard reality of the situation. And so everything is terrible. And then we start to work ourselves out of that cold, hard reality and things get better again. And I was expecting like by day 5, I would crash and like, okay, it was great while it lasted. But honestly, if there's any downward slope, it's been small and it just keeps increasing my productivity. So I want to tell people, if you're listening, if you're watching, whatever, if you've been with us this far, go try 3 free sessions a week. And $5, like there are students all over the world who are not like in the same economies that we are, like who are still using it, who are figuring out $5 a month is well worth it. And for people who are like copywriters, paid knowledge professionals, people who are working, getting paid based on their productivity, this is a super, super, super smart investment. And honestly, even if you're working for minimum wage and it saved an hour of lost productivity per month, that $5 is more than worth it. So at the very least, go try it and be open to, hey, this could completely change my life and make me far more productive and get done the things that I want to get done. So focusmate.com, go try it. Super easy to use and super powerful for productivity. Taylor, thank you so much for being on here for this interview. I got a lot of value. I love that it went in different directions that were beyond just, Pomodoro sessions on video chat. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Roy.
Thank you once again for tuning in to this daily episode of Breakthrough Marketing Secrets. Remember, check out the links with this episode for even more value. Now make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, and engage in every way you can to keep this show going and growing and delivering daily value to you. I'll catch you soon for your next big breakthrough.